Police steady watching me. Every day they clocking me. That is exactly what Andrew Vaughn, aka King Vaughn, is saying to the rest of the league right now as he is going on his tear with the Milwaukee Brewers and propelling the Milwaukee Brewers from just a fringe playoff contender to a World Series contender and the first team to 70 wins. Welcome back to Good Sports for You, where we're talking about good sports for you. And today we're going to be talking about Andrew Vaughn, and we're going to be talking about other top-level prospects who maybe struggled at first, but were able to find their footing later on as their career progressed, even if it was just for a season or even a couple of months, and why teams need to be taking gambles on those kinds of players more often. So to start off, we need a little bit of backstory when it comes to Andrew Vaughn. He went to UC Berkeley, where he was an absolute stud. He became the Golden Spikes winner. The Golden Spikes Award is the award that's given to the best amateur athlete in baseball. So he was the best college player in the whole entire nation. He was drafted third overall, and honestly, he was just kind of there. He was a top 15 prospect, which is great. He did good in the minor leagues, but then 2020 came, and he wasn't able to play because of a lot of issues going on in the world, obviously. And then he came up in 2021 for the White Sox. Yay! The White Sox! Such a fun, good, winning organization. Right, everyone? But then, obviously, he was not the player that everyone expected him to be. People were expecting this all-star caliber player, maybe even MVP caliber bat. He was a corner outfielder at first, and he struggled. He was literally one of the worst defenders across all of baseball, so he got moved over to first base. But with first base, there are different expectations. You're not able to be playing a premium defensive position, so you need to be a premier offensive bat. And he wasn't that for the White Sox at all. He ended his time with the White Sox batting around 248 with a 303 on base percentage and a 407 slugging percentage for a 709 OPS, which comes out to a 98 OPS plus. So he was a slightly below league average hitter in his entire time with the White Sox when he was drafted to be this premier caliber bat. So obviously, things weren't working out in Chicago on the South Side, and in fact, at the beginning of this season, he was off to his worst start ever. He was playing dreadfully. Now we're going to switch over to Milwaukee, and in Milwaukee, the Brewers were doing very solid, and they have a lot of pitching potential. They had Freddie Peralta, Brandon Woodruff was coming back from injury soon, they had guys like Chad Patrick coming up, and Quinn Priester, who were all pitching incredibly well. And then you had Aaron Savale, who was an older, veteran-type player, who kind of didn't have a place. The Brewers decided to bring up their star prospect, Jacob Misiorowski, who has been a rookie phenom for them, and they said, hey, Aaron, you're going to have to go to the bullpen. And Aaron said, hey, I'm a veteran. Why am I going to the bullpen? I want out. I don't want to be a part of this team anymore. So the Brewers said, okay, that's fine. So they scrambled to find a trade, and obviously you're not going to find a whole heck of a lot when the teams around you know this player doesn't want to be on that team. Why are we willing to take him on for you when he doesn't even want to be there? You could just cut him, we can pick him up and get him for nothing. So the Brewers were trying to shop around, and they found a potential suitor with the Chicago White Sox. The Chicago White Sox obviously didn't want to give a lot up. They didn't want to give up a prospect or any young players because they're in the midst of a long rebuild. So they just need someone to eat some innings, which is what Savale would do for them. In exchange, the Brewers got Andrew Vaughn. He has all this pedigree, yet he hasn't been able to amount to anything on the big league level, especially offensively, which is where you really want him to be. So the Brewers said, okay, we'll pick him up. He started off in AAA with the Nashville Sounds, and he was decent there. He wasn't like blowing anyone's socks off. But the Brewers had an injury to their starting first baseman, Rhys Hoskins. So they said, all right, Andrew Vaughn, you're coming up, you better be decent. And he has been way better than decent. He has been arguably the best player in the MLB in his time with the Milwaukee Brewers. He's been batting well over 350 with an on-base percentage well into the fours with a slugging in the sevens for an OPS plus that's above 200. So he is over 1 100% better than he was with the Chicago White Sox. He has been on a 12-game hitting streak. He's been hitting home runs left and right. He has been doing absolutely sensational. He has more home runs and RBIs in his short time with the Brewers than he has had in this season with the White Sox, despite having spent much more time there. So he has been absolutely incredible, and like I said, along with other factors such as Jacob Misiorowski, very talented pitching, the return of Brandon Woodruff, the Brewers have gone from a maybe we'll try to get a third or second wild card finish to now we're likely going to win the NL Central, and we're looking like a playoff World Series contender team, being the first team to 70 wins and currently the best record in all of the MLB. And that has largely been due to Andrew Vaughn and the small risk that the Brewers were willing to take on this guy who had this prospect pedigree. Now, you look around the history of the MLB, and there are other guys who are like this. I think one of the perfect examples is Jurickson Profar. Jurickson Profar, for those of you who don't know, was the number one premier prospect in all of baseball before his debut. He was incredible. People thought that he was going to be a 5-tool player, or at least very good at everything. He had a good hit tool. He had a good speed tool. He had a good everything tool. He was a great prospect. He came up very young with the Texas Rangers, and he struggled. He was, again, a player who was, quite frankly, a league average bat at best. He was able to play around a lot of different positions, which was very helpful. Then the Rangers decided enough was enough. He went to the Athletics for a bit. He went to the Padres. He went to the Rockies, and then he went back to the Padres last year, and he ended up having a phenomenal season. He was able to become an all-star for the first time. He was able to receive MVP votes, and he finished with the Silver Slugger Award, again, for a player who was a league average to below league average bat throughout the rest of his career. So you're able to see some of that real prospect potential that we were able to see before he was able to come into the big leagues. People saying he's this great guy, he's going to be a perennial all-star, he's going to be a perennial MVP candidate, he's going to be this cornerstone of this Rangers team that needs him because they were competing at the time. But instead, it's like 10 years later, he's able to turn into this stud for the Padres. Now, was he able to turn into a stud because of potentially some performance-enhancing drugs that he was using over that time? Who's to say? I don't know. All I know is that he got suspended the year after. So for all I know, it could have been a completely clean slate that last year, because I'm sure that the MLB was testing him because they were like, how the heck is this guy able to turn into this below average to average player to this all-star caliber player? I mean, I remember him in the MVP polls early on in the year before the All-Star break. People were talking about him like he could legitimately have a chance to win MVP or at least a top 5 finish. And he petered off a little bit by the end of the year, but he was still significantly better than he had ever been before. Another guy that is kind of similar to that is Orlando Arcia, another Brewers prospect who is very highly touted. He was a top 5 prospect, and at the shortstop position, people thought that he could be a plus bat, a plus defender, a plus runner. People thought, okay, this is going to be one of those guys that's going to be part of the next generation of shortstops. And he wasn't. As a Brewers fan, I love Arcia, but he was not the player that everyone thought that he was going to be. He was a below average bat for the majority of his time in Milwaukee. His defense, it was flashy at points, but when you really looked at the numbers and the eye test, it just wasn't getting the job done. And he had a couple of stretches there, I believe it was 2017, where he put together a really nice season. It wasn't the all-star caliber player that people thought that he was going to be before he made it to the big leagues. In 2018, though, he did have a couple of series in the playoffs, specifically against the Rockies and the Dodgers, where he went off, and he was incredible. But then, as soon as the playoffs were done, he struggled once again. The Brewers ended up shipping him off to Atlanta, where he was good. He was a lot better. The Brewers got literally nothing for him, nothing that the Brewers have used in the future whatsoever. And in Atlanta, he decided to become an all-star caliber player. He put together a phenomenal first half of the season. He was able to bat well above what he had done before. I believe he was in the 290s, so he was putting together a really nice season. Should he have been an all-star? That's really up for debate, in my opinion. But Atlanta had a really, really strong fan voting that year, and Arcia is a fantastic guy, and fans love him. How can you not love Orlando Arcia? Because he's just a fun-loving guy. He's a real clubhouse guy as well. So he was able to become a starting all-star for that Braves team. Mind you, it was also a very good Braves team. But despite even the controversial all-star selection, he had a bare minimum, had a very good season and a very good first half of the season. And again, this is a player that the Braves traded basically nothing for, and they were able to get a guy who was a starting caliber shortstop, an all-star caliber shortstop, for a team that was looking to compete for basically pennies on the dollar. So what I'm saying to all the MLB teams out there, if you're a fan of a team, and if you see, okay, we're trading a guy who maybe is a rotation piece, he's a starter for us, and we're getting back a guy who had a top prospect pedigree and now sucks, don't just look at the suck. Look at those moments where he is good, where he is great even, and look at that prospect pedigree. And if your team is a team that can develop talent, there is a chance that they could make it as well. A couple of those guys could include like a Jared Kelenic player who was another top-level prospect, and he was really not good at all for the majority of his career. He had a couple of spots here or there, even like a couple of months or a couple of weeks where you saw his potential. And he's bounced around a little bit and he hasn't really lived up to it. But if a team can somehow find a way to crack the Jared Kelenic code, he could be an all-star caliber player for a real competing team. And an all-star caliber player, that's sometimes all you need to just break that gap from, okay, we're fighting for a wild card spot, to, oh, we're one of the best teams in the league. Basically just what happened with the Milwaukee Brewers right now. Or someone like Gavin Lux, who's another top prospect who is kind of bounced around here or there. He has the defense, the bat hasn't always been there. But again, somebody you can take a chance on, you can probably trade for super cheap. Those are the guys that as a fan, you should be excited to see. You shouldn't look at it and you should say, oh man, great, we got Andrew Vaughn. He's been dreadful. He's been awful. Because you gave up Aaron Savale, who wasn't even going to pitch for the team. You got to look at the risk reward. You have very little risk. Oh no, we gave up Aaron Savale, who is a pitcher who wasn't even going to pitch for the Milwaukee Brewers, and now we're getting Andrew Vaughn. The risk in Andrew Vaughn is he's not going to be good, which is the exact same that was happening before. But then you have an injury that comes up, and the reward can be huge. If they can live up to that potential that they once had, Andrew Vaughn has clearly been living up to his third overall pick potential in this very, very small window. Is that sustainable? I have no idea. For his sake, I hope it is, because he seems like a good guy. He's been putting in the work right now with the Milwaukee Brewers. And honestly, I can't even imagine how much it kind of would hurt if you have the guys who were drafted before him were Adley Rutschman, Bobby Witt Jr. So you're looking at that draft, you're like, wow, this is a great draft. And then you go Andrew Vaughn, who's at, I don't even know if he's at one WAR for his career right now, when Adley and Bobby Witt Jr. are already well into the teens. You have players drafted after him, Riley Green, who's been an all-star, CJ Abrams, who's been an all-star, Corbin Carroll, who is an MVP candidate player. So this has just got to be a huge boost for Andrew Vaughn and his confidence, and I hope that he can continue it. I hope that he can go out and find a team that really wants him. Hopefully the Brewers can keep him around because they like him. Maybe he can sign a nice contract extension, get himself paid, because that would be fantastic. It's just there's nothing better than seeing a player live up to their full potential, and that is exactly what the Brewers are doing with Andrew Vaughn right now. That's taken them from a playoff caliber team to a World Series caliber team. I hope you enjoyed watching me talk about a little bit about Andrew Vaughn and other top prospects who have somehow turned it around in a couple of seasons. Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe, and I'm out. Thank you.